Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the veil of our physical existence? What if someone could help you unlock the mysteries of your past, find the clarity in the present, and glimpse the possibilities of your future? Welcome to Spirit Talk Live, where we explore the extraordinary, the unseen, and the deeply spiritual. I'm your host, Scott Allen. Together, we bring you conversations that inspire, awaken, and connect you to the power of spirit. Today, we are thrilled to welcome an exceptional guest, Darlene Van de Grift. Darlene is a medical intuitive, cosmic mediator, medium, and author. With over 35 years of experience guiding individuals on profound journeys of self-discovery. Whether you're seeking answers about your health, relationships, spirituality, or career, or even delving into past lives and cosmic connections, Darlene's incredible abilities have transformed countless lives. In tonight's episode, we'll explore how Darlene helps people uncover the what was, what is, and what can be. Her work in mediumship and beyond offers clarity, purpose, and an expanded understanding of the universe around us. So settle in, open your mind, and join us for an enlightening conversation. This is Spirit Talk Live, where the spirit world meets our everyday lives. Let's dive in.
Spirit Talk Live with Scott Allen is for entertainment purposes only.
My dear friend, a wonderfully, wonderfully gifted medium. I've seen him in action. It would blow your minds wide open. He's just incredible.
Patrick from London, you are on the air. Welcome to the show.
I mean, this reading has meant more to me than anything. And I'm so grateful.
Hello, Darlene, and welcome to the show. You know, we finally got there playing around with the setting.
Me too.
You know, I like the way you sound, but not 3 and 4 times after everything.
And I couldn't tolerate my voice hearing it in my ears all the time either.
Oh my God. Well, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. And we do have live people in the audience tonight. Mary, hello. She's saying hello. I think Mary might be from Tewksbury, Massachusetts. I think, if that's the Mary that we know. So welcome everyone to the show. This is our Christmas show. This is our last show before 2025. So I'm glad you're here with us. As I said earlier, Darlene is here with us. And, you know, I really am interested in sharing. You know, I love this stuff, right? And I love sharing spirituality, and I love sharing all of these different abilities because we all have things differently, right? You know, what I have may not be what you have. It's all kind of coming from the same place, but it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been doing this your whole life? Is this something that's been with you from the beginning?
Feels like it.
Yeah.
I would say that I really wasn't aware of it. And it was a gradual increase of that ability. Every time I added something in my life, I got a little bit more. And I never really judged it or saw it as, oh, I'm being psychic, or it was forbidden pretty much in my childhood. So knowing that or talking about it was not necessarily acceptable. However, my mother was a walk-in, and so that was common knowledge. So it was a little unusual in my growing up and how to accept this. And most of it was falling in love with the human body when I became a massage therapist.
Do you still do that?
I do on occasion. I mostly, because I live up on a mountaintop. And so people don't usually travel here. So most of the time I'm doing, phone calls and dealing with their issues that way and working with them that way.
Yeah, it's funny. I know so many people who are massage therapists and somehow have awoken to spirit, and they still do massage, but there's something about that too, I think, is very spiritual as you go through it, and it just connects you in some way.
Well, it does. What once we open up our hands, I believe, to not look for, it's like you're not looking to fix what you find, right?
Mm,
You're just looking for the body to give you that indication of whatever it is that might need to be addressed that
right.
comes forward. So you're opening up your palm chakras, really, as I see it.
Yeah. Do you do Reiki as well, or just the
No, I don't.
I'm not either, but I know people who do a combination of that sort of
Hmm.
the Reiki, some of the massage. They're also mediums. We had talked earlier when we talked the other day. We would talk about past lives and trauma. And
Hmm.
how do you think that exploring past lives can reveal the root cause of traumas that we experience in this life?
Well, not everybody is connected to past lives. They don't either believe them or they're considered taboo or whatever that might be in this lifetime. But usually, the clients that I get, in some way, they've either been through the medical profession or they've tried different kinds of therapy and nothing changes, or very little changes. So they feel very stuck. So that's usually who I get. And because clients, a lot of my clients don't necessarily go back to a past life. Like it has to be, they don't come to me to do that necessarily. But through their process of learning what's stuck in them, what's hindering them,
Mhm.
it can go back to a past life. And then finding that core of what that past life is can change everything in the present life.
That's interesting. How did you realize you could do that? Is that hypnosis, or how do you bring someone to that?
No, it opens up for me from the multidimensional places that I work with. So it would be when I used to do more hands on, it would be I would get information auditorially. It's like tell her this or tell him this, or I would get it. I'm an artist, so the pictures would come in very deep, significant pictures. And I would kind of go, no, like I'm not saying that, I'm not telling them that. And after about 10 minutes of being prodded with that, I would say something. And then it was a learning trust, right? Then everything would open and I'd realize, okay, so there must be something to this. And part of that was I would bring them down looking at their levels of where their core was, like where was the age of cause of whatever they were bringing to me.
Sure.
There would always be something present day, or present day as well as past, maybe several things in the past. But the age would be, anywhere from where they are to conception. And then it would start to go past conception. And I would be like, okay, where are we going with this?
Are
And
we?
then the picture would start to come up and explaining that to them. And it was always very poignant to either what they were dealing with or, your husband was your father in a past life and this is what was going on. And it would be sometimes heart wrenching for them to realize why that relationship has always been, but it was always freeing.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. Now, and they're aware of it as they're going through it, or you're just picking it up psychically?
I pick it up and then I give them, but I'll be asking them questions like, there's something happening. You're a female. There's your father is also female. There's sisters, and this is what's happening. And then they would go, but that's exactly what's happening in this lifetime. So it would be like an interacted. It's not just me talking all the time. I ask questions, they answer it. It starts to form the picture and the storyline.
I think it's fascinating. Have you ever encountered a past life that's, significantly shifted someone's perspective on their current relationship, as an
Yeah.
example?
Yeah. Finding out that because past lives aren't all, I mean, they're not all negative either. By the way, we bring in gifts from the past life as well. I think there's a fair balance of that. But when you realize that who you have been in a past life that may not be so trustworthy or whatever to a certain person, you bring that forward. You do the healing back there because that's part of the session is what needs to be healed, what needs to be addressed. opening up the heart space to do that. And then once they realize or they understand or they grok that, then they change in their viewpoint, their perspective changes about the person that they might have found back there that makes sense to them of why they are who they are. The interesting thing is that when you change your perspective of that person because you did the work, it changes. That person looks like they changed, but they they really let them out of the box, right?
I just think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. And, for people who don't believe it, and I obviously it's probably difficult, if not impossible, to take them down that road and have any kind of belief. But for those who do, I mean, really, what a gift. I mean, to be able to bring that to them. And I know you said you paint, you're an
Hmm.
artist.
Yeah.
Anything come out in your paintings? Like spirit art
Well,
thing?
um, I have a history with my mother, and as a contract that I wasn't going to surpass her. So the day that she passed, which she had a long history of dying when I was 16, and she made it till she was 86. The day she passed, it was like being in a sci-fi movie because everything started to collapse, and I both felt relieved and grief stricken. Okay. But the beings, the multidimensional beings started to come in more than who I was working with for the 20 years. And as they were coming in, it was a 3 to 4 month period that every night it would be going back and visiting a past life or being a mediator between those that were coming in so I could understand the dynamics of timelines and past lives and future lives, of what that is. So, yes, I think it definitely changed me. I know that clients that come in, it changes them with their children or their husbands or their wives, or, you just feel or know your person of whatever, whoever you're bringing in, you accept your accountability, and then it goes past that.
And so when you talk about cosmic beings, you mean spirit, or you don't mean like aliens, UFO type people, or maybe you do. I don't know. I mean, because I've heard people that even channel, people from other planets. I don't know. I've not done that personally.
Well, I'm very big on multidimensionality, and that's part of all the work that I do. So when I started to tap into going past getting all this information and my first time of channeling back in early 90s, it was a bit daunting for me, but that initial being that came in was one of my past lives, which I did not realize it at the time. And that's what the books are written about as well. I have 5 books that are coming out. But that he was reptilian. And so that part of, and he wants to be more human, which was always my journey, how to become more human, how to become more than you are right now. And that's what I try to help people with. Like, if you are driven to become more than you are, then it's really about going up. It's cleaning the past lives up. It's cleaning, if that's part of your history, then you need to bring that forward with either acknowledging it, cleaning it up, healing it, and then what gifts come forward because of it.
So let me get this right. You met yourself from a previous life, and I find that fascinating. So the idea of, I don't know if they travel, or if it's just the idea of time is sort of bent upon itself, kind of like a ribbon, and it's all sort of in that space.
Well, I think that, what happened for me was, my mother was and we were very close in lots of different ways. But she went to an inner child workshop and they did a past life regression. Well, they actually did what do they call it, hypnosis with her because she had an inkling that something happened during this certain period of time, and they recorded it. So when I listened to it, it was about an abduction that she had that nobody knew about and she didn't know about it. But that terror that she had, what happened while I was listening, I'm listening to her terror, and this voice came up out of nowhere, a male voice inside my head, and said, I did not do that. We did not do that, because it was the grays. and grays are related in some way to reptilians. So I think that was the avenue that it was like, oh no, we didn't do that. And that voice I had no idea was reptilian or was part of my past.
I find it fascinating and confusing. I mean, when you
And,
think kind of even process some of this stuff, you know, I think it is. Darlene, I want to just take a quick second and say hello to some people.
sure.
Anna, hello. Nice to see you again. Thanks for joining us again this week. Matthew Ryan Kondraki. Hello, Matt. How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. And Mark Paul. Hello, Scott and Darlene. Greetings from Swanton, Ohio. Hello in Swanton, Ohio. Nice to see you, Mark. Thanks for joining us here on the show. You know, and I'd like to give a question out to the audience tonight. Have you, and you can answer in the chat if you feel so inclined, have you ever had a deja vu moment or recurring dream that felt like it was connected to a past life? Or do you have any experiences with past lives, like being drawn to certain places, eras, or cultures without really knowing why? And I'd love to just hear some of your stories. If any of you have any of these in the chat, we can talk about them a little bit. So I love when you said, Darlene, that you're a cosmic mediator. And I have to be honest, I wanted to talk to you about it on the show and not when we were talking before, but I really didn't know what that was. And I'm starting to get a little bit of an understanding of that. Can people, I mean, obviously you do this, right? But you do this stuff virtually when you do these past lives, or you have them come to you in person?
No, I don't need to do them in person. It comes regularly. That all they have to do is open the door. Like people will ask me, "Do you need any information?" It's like, no, just give me your name and what you're dealing with, and we open the door, and here we go.
Wow. And once they know, it creates a shift.
Yeah, it's the accountability, it's the knowing, it's the understanding, and then if there's any accountability on that, because even if you were in that other lifetime and it was not something you did to harm someone, but the
Mhm.
father, the brother, the mother, whatever, you go into a place of what would you like to hear from them? You
Yeah.
know, and it's just that deep place that we could say, oh, it's being, you know, you're imagining that. But it's creativity. And in that creativity, energy changes. And in the energy that changes, your life changes because your perception changes, your belief systems can change. All of that can shift
Right.
pretty quickly.
Do you think it can also help expand our understanding of our soul's journey?
Yes. Yes. And the thing, you know, I've had people say, I relate it to if you bring in a concept, you bring in a pattern. Say you had a pattern of poverty,
Hmm.
and maybe you had 4 lifetimes or 40 lifetimes of poverty. Tracking it down to the one that is most significant to your timeline to now, and when you heal that, like the pattern is like the string, and the pearls are like all of those past lives, right? So when you heal the most significant one, the string gets pulled out, and you don't have to keep going back and saying, oh, I had 50 lifetimes of poverty, do I have to deal with each one? No.
So, another question, sort of on that line a little bit. You had mentioned that you also can see future lifetimes,
Yeah.
and do you feel as though the future lifetimes are not as prevalent as the past lifetimes? In other words, are we coming to the end? Are people saying no, we're not coming back in and incarnating anymore? Or what's your experience with
Well,
that
not all of our future lifetimes are human either.
thing?
You know, so we can say we're not coming back here, and that may be really true, but that doesn't mean that you're going to stay in the spirit world. You might want to decide to be, you know, Arcturian or reptilian or something, you know, like where do you get the most growth and evolution? Being what? Being who?
Yeah.
So no, I think they are significant. They don't show up, future lifetimes do not show up that often. Um, and it's usually for a gift because there's choices in our lifetime, right? So in a future lifetime, you may choose to do a lot different than what it looks like
Yeah.
in the records, right? So you may choose to do something very different than that, but the gift may still be there. Maybe you're an artist, maybe you're, maybe you're an activist, maybe you're something in that lifetime that would be significant for you to know
Yeah.
and for you to bring something forward about it or backwards about it.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, again, my head is spinning, but you think about going forward and backwards. It's like Back to the Future, you don't know where you're
And there's really no time, right? So we're just using that as a template because it makes sense.
right. Forward and backwards. There really is no forward and backwards, really, when you think about
Mm.
it, all kind of
No,
at the same moment, maybe. I don't
yeah,
know. Hard to process that. We
it
can't.
is. We can't. No.
We can't as people. So what what are some tools or techniques you think people might be able to use in order to try to begin uncovering some of this stuff? Or is there? Or do they have to see a medium or someone who really
Um, I I believe that everybody can do everything, truthfully. You just have to have an intention in your mind to it and gather the resources of whatever it is to align you with it. So I would say that, and this is across the board, meditation is always the way to go to start anything so that you can stay centered and function from there, right? And then what I would tell people is connecting to the universe, connecting to the field, the infinite field, the field of possibilities, connecting to that and asking questions, like, show me something today that I don't know in a meditation, right? Show me something today that I don't know. And then be aware of synchronicity, be aware of what comes forward. What does somebody say to you that goes, wow,
yeah,
that's really cool, right? Like, trust that. It's a trusting process. How do you trust what's given to you? How do you trust what the universe gives you? How do you trust what your higher self and your guidance system gives you? Once that is more established, then you can go anywhere. You know, I get woken up on a regular basis, anywhere from 12:30 at night to 5 in the morning, a lot of times with downloads of either groups that I'm working with or a client that's coming in next day or whatever that is. So it's that trust and knowing that you can be open that much and you can set boundaries. It's not like multidimensional beings just come in and they, harass us.
right. But trust is, I mean, I think that's a big part of all of this that we do. And I think even
Yes.
with just, when I say straight mediumship, if you don't trust that they will show up and be there, it's a lot more difficult. Once you trust, they give you everything you need. And I think
Hmm.
we could learn from that. If we meditate and we trust that, you'll start to get more and more, because spirit really just sort of lays it out in front of you. You don't have to work that hard at it. They
No.
just at you, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you ask, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me too. It's the trusting, but it's the asking. It's being curious enough to say, I would like to know this, or, finding a tool that can resonate with you, whether that's kinesiology or pendulum or cards or whatever, to just tune us up to something that is invisible or that we get it in a different way through our senses.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Do do you think that karma is, I mean, what is that? Like, how does that fit into the scheme of things? Or does it at all? Karma and these cosmic connections and that kind of thing.
Well, karma, because of the time that we're living in, I believe, and what I'm understanding from who I work with, is that karma is trying to be deleted. It was something that was brought in early on where it kept the checks and balances.
Yeah.
And then the more that we've incarnated
Mhm.
on earth, instead of, okay, we're here one lifetime, we did something that wasn't so great, the next lifetime we heal it. It became too accumulative. And that's what's happening as I see it in the world now, is we have an accumulation of either karma or past lives that need to be healed, and we're acting it out. Like, all of that is bubbling up. That's the confusion, the chaos, the anxiety is a lot about all of this that we've been holding on to, that's trying to break free. It's trying to heal in some way, but it's so much, so karma, alleviating that so that we're clear going through this timeline, that we're more clear at the end of whatever the end may be of this, brings it about around accountability and responsibility and integrity, all back to that. Like, how do we function that at a higher level so that we don't have to have karma?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's well, I mean, and it's such a fascinating thing. Now I'll tell you something that happened to me. You talk about deja vu. Um, I remember being in a location in Ohio, and I
Hmm.
corner, and I've never felt it quite like this before. I have been here. I've been here. I right, and it was just that corner. I recognized it. I turned, and there was a clock. Well, I'll tell you where I was, and it's a little crazy, but it was the Ohio State Reformatory where they filmed Shawshank Redemption, and I was there.
Oh, wow.
The place is very haunted, but there were a lot of people, and I wasn't focusing on any of that. But I was walking around, just sort of looking and just meandering, and then I turned the corner, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, there's a thing over here, like a I don't want to call it a closet, but like a little room." And I felt like I had been there, and I turned and I stood and I just sort of walked around in a circle for a minute because it was the strangest thing I have ever experienced. Once I got out of that area, it was gone, but it was just that corner, and I'd never experienced that before. I didn't know what that meant. Had I been there, or was it something that was like that?
Well, you could have. I mean, this is where um, not only past lives, but your ancestors come in. Not saying that this was about your ancestors, but we carry the same kind of thing. If there is something that is significant, because I truly believe that we don't see, experience, have deja vu, have dream state unless it is something that is significant to us in knowing that will provide evolution for us, right? So, you being there in some way could have been ancestry if you could track something down there, but it also feels like because of how you travel, which I believe you do,
Mhm.
right? So you tune into things. You could have been picking that up from somebody that you saw that day, or you could have been picking it up from a client or something that, oh, wow. And that would be where you ask the questions. Is this mine?
Yeah,
Right? Is
yeah,
this mine? And if it's not, whose is it? Can you go through it? Can you bring in your energy to say whose is it? And then maybe there's a healing thing. Like that's happened lots of times with people. Maybe there's something that you need to do in that moment to let it go for whoever you're holding it for.
yeah. It was just the strangest thing. I mean, we all kind of get a little deja vu, but it wasn't like this. It's like when they talk about people who have lucid dreams. I mean, you can dream,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
a whole different ball of wax. It's is a very
Yes.
That's how this felt. It was very, very different. So if I were to call you, and I just might,
Mm.
I were to call you, and and
Yeah.
I wanted to do a session exploring past lives, what would that look like? What would we do?
Well, you would first say, like, there's got to be something in this lifetime that feels like it's drawing you to want to know more about it,
Hmm.
right? Because opening up past lives when there's no connection to this one, or there's too much fragmentation, it'll happen, but it's more out of a curiosity as opposed to a healing.
Right.
So if you have something that I want to know about, it's my wife, or I have this issue with my daughter, or, my grandfather I was abused by, I really like to know what that is about. Is there any threads attached?
Yeah.
Then you have something to deal with. And then what happens is we get that little story, or we get that little setting of whatever they want to deal with. And then I'll go back and ask questions through, because what I'm connected to is their innate wisdom, their body wisdom, as well as their um, guidance system.
Hmm.
And so I'll go back and start to ask questions to see where do we stop. Well, I'm looking for the core issue. Like, where is that? It will Past lives cannot come in unless there is a direct line from that past life into this lifetime. Could be conception. Anytime from conception to now, it could have unwrapped the DNA, it can open you up. You're now in that timeline or that karmic place, right? So find it here and then ask, is there a past life on that? If it is, all I usually start with is are you a male or a female? and then the story starts. So we work from there.
And you don't have to know which past lives. I mean, there could be however many.
Well, sometimes it'll come in like you're in Europe. Oh, I see this, this, and this, and you're in Europe, and this is about the time period, not dates, but usually either what they look like or that, it's what kind of setting is around them. I'll get that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had been told, I'm trying to remember now what I had been told. Because I did this once with someone, but it was more of a hypnosis thing and less of a,
Mm,
oh, I'm trying to remember what they told me. But I wasn't sure. And the whole thing with hypnosis is I trust my intuition more than I entrust hypnosis because I didn't feel like I was in. Do you know what I mean? When I'm channeling,
I do.
it feels very different. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
sometimes I don't know what I'm saying or what, not what I'm saying. I don't know why I'm saying it. And after the fact,
Right.
I back and think I don't even know where that came from. It's not like that with hypnosis. So I sort of wondered, is it real or not? Um,
Hmm.
but I do think it's a fascinating thing. And I I just I don't know. I mean, I think it's fascinating that you do that. I wouldn't even know where to start, but it's not my gift. It's not what they've given me. What do you think? I mean, how would somebody know necessarily, that some of the things they're experiencing are from a past life and not just their own stuff?
I think you'd have to be curious about it because it's not something that's taught to us in a big way. Some religions, I guess, mention it or whatever, but we're not taught that that the past life, leave the past behind. And there's certain places that going into the past and they will block it. Like if it is too traumatic for whoever I'm working with, they will give very little information and they will block that. They will move to another timeline to say this one is more appropriate,
So
right? Because maybe it's too traumatic for them now. And well, first of all, I don't get any information about it, or I get very little about it, and I'll say let's look for another avenue because this is not something you need to know about. And I remember you had asked a question. Um, did I ever have any experience with anyone healing? And many times, but the one that comes to mind is there was a woman she was in her 70s and she had been bleeding for about 6 to 8 months. They couldn't find anything wrong with her or whatever. So she came in and I did hands-on work with her. And what came up is a past life of being mutilated by several men and raped and all of that. And she went through the process of whatever that was. She did the healing around her body. She apologized to her body. She let the whole thing go. And the next day she stopped bleeding. So to me, it's like, okay,
wow.
you know, yeah.
I mean,
Because
and that's
sometimes the body,
healing, not even an emotional healing. It's like physical.
yeah, the body needed it for whatever reason that it got triggered. And I don't remember what would happen to her like 7 to 8 months before that unraveled this.
Yeah.
But whatever that was, the body, because our body has a different consciousness than what we believe a lot of times. So the body screams out when we're ill or when we have a disease. It wants us to pay attention to something specific. Sometimes that's a past life. Sometimes that's ancestral trauma.
And if it's not, in other words, I'm just making this up, but you were abused
Sure.
as a child by your mother or father or whomever in this life, but
Hmm.
you're still thinking it may have something to do with a past life. If it doesn't, will it just not show you anything? Will it just
It
block?
will just say, this is not a past life. This is where it started in this life, you
Yeah.
know, or you're picking up something that happened to your mother.
Yeah.
It's not yours, but you assume it. I've run into where they think they've been abused by their father. They have no memory, but they just feel it. But the father was abused. And so when he looks at that child, that energy comes in and they do feel it, but they don't know it's not really abuse. It's like the father holds back from the abuse because he doesn't want to keep the pattern up, but they still feel it as if. And that needs to be cleared up.
I've got a question here. I'm going to bring it up. Let me just see here. This is, where is it? Oh, there it is. Medium Chris Clardy. Hi, Chris. Hello. Get the being very inquisitive about something. I, for several years, was obsessed with learning about the Holocaust, and I just felt the need to know stories. I've often wondered if it was connected to a past life. Or how do you know? Or is that an interest that it's just an interest in learning more for whatever reason? But does it always mean that you're connected?
No, again, the Holocaust is a big one for carrying it and carrying it in the morphic field. He could have tapped into something that, again, like we talked about you with the deja vu, right? That you might have had a client that you may not even be aware of. So, one, it could have been a past life with him, okay? Or genetically, it carries through the ancestors. Or the other thing is that's coming up is that somebody's trying to connect with him from the Holocaust.
So on another level, someone could be trying to connect with her and just and okay, let's just bend our minds a little bit here, but is it that life happening in real time as we exist now, or do you think it's people that were from the Holocaust that are in spirit coming back to communicate?
Well, time exists no matter what. So she could have tapped into that. It says medium. So is she a medium?
The medium, yep, medium
Yeah.
crystal.
So, whatever dynamic she's working with and that curiosity about that, there's something there for her, is all I can say. There's something there for her, whether that is a past life of hers or something that she just needs to understand their story, because maybe there's going to be people that need to hear that in a different level. Maybe it's clients that come to her that aren't even here yet, but she needs to build that understanding of their story up so she could be more empathic or more compassionate or whatever. You can't deny anything that if there is a big enough drive, there is a reason.
Yep. Yeah. And it may be, you do you see a lot of people that have gone back? I mean, let's face it, there was a lot of trauma there, right? So, if you're bringing some of that trauma with you into this life, I mean, have you seen a lot of people going back to that era?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wartime is a big one. It doesn't matter if it was the Holocaust or whatever, it's wartime. And I'd say a fair amount carry it genetically, the trauma genetically.
Wow.
How to deal with that, how to release that. Because your life is, your patterns mimic what happened back there, your belief systems, but it's not really yours.
How do you know if someone's real? What should
What does that
someone look?
mean? Are we all real?
Yeah, yeah, we're all real. Poke them, no. But I feel like you do what you do, and I trust you because you know what I mean. I trust that what you're doing is real. But I've
Yeah.
also seen people that say, "Oh, you were an Egyptian princess. You were," you know what I mean. How can someone who is looking to have an experience or looking to have a session? I mean, first of all, they should call you because we know you're real and you do it. But how would someone know that the person is real? What are some of the things to look for? Do you think?
If they can trust their felt sense, it'll feel aligned and real, and it won't feel like they're either being controlled, manipulated, or there's a hidden agenda. Because sometimes there is. Sometimes there's an ego based with somebody. And that's not to judge them. It's just for you to resonate what feels right for you and ask questions. If they can't, if you're going to somebody and they're on a roll about this and that, and you ask questions and they can't necessarily answer them, or it derails them or whatever, it may be something to that is not real.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important in any of the work that we do as light workers, mediums, that you find someone that resonates with you. Um,
Hmm.
Tell people too. Most of the time when the messages just flow, but then there's
Yeah.
sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it's just like could be me, could be them blocked. I mean, who knows? but maybe I'm not the medium for you, or maybe I'm not the medium for you today. Maybe
Hmm.
a different day, or maybe you just need a different person, and that's okay too. But I feel like we need to find the people that we connect with, that we resonate with, and that's going to make a world of difference too.
And I want to mention as you're bringing that up is that sometimes people's people have such a when you're talking to somebody and they're already in their head thinking of what they're going to tell you. So they're not really tuned in. They have an agenda. They want this and whatever you're saying or whatever. And it's really hard to connect with someone like that. They're the most difficult, right? When they have something going on that is not anything that they're talking about, or they want to hear it this way because they don't want to know this other thing.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. And even people that will sit across from me and say, I only want to talk to this, my mother, my father, my son, whomever. And that's really difficult because, first of all, I don't even need to know who you want to connect with. They'll come. I
Right.
can only tell you who's here. I can't make someone come. And
Hmm.
oftentimes they'll just block it out. They'll block out everything
Yeah.
else. And I don't think they do it intentionally, but I think it's just something that some people do, and it's not going to connect. What is Chris saying here? Let's see. She said, I have defiantly experienced the energy mismatch and had difficulty tuning into them. I think it happens to all of us, really. And
Yeah.
that's a lesson for people too, because I think that, if you're talking about what's real and what isn't real, anyone that says they can always connect and they will give you your grandmother, your grandfather, whomever, is probably not being completely and totally honest with you,
Yeah.
because
Because
anybody that can do that.
yeah.
All
And some people have already incarnated.
Yeah. Well, on that note too, because people ask me this question, and do you feel like there's a part of us that remains, our higher self, our higher being that remains up there, that we
Up there. Up
well,
there.
like right here.
Yeah.
I know, you know what I mean? Like I'm using human terms. It's not up there, but you know what I mean? Like if they've incarnated again, could they, could we still connect with a part of their soul that remains? In-
Well, if we believe we're multidimensional, there's so many parts of us
Yeah.
that are not present in this particular form. It's just that we only believe that it's this one because this is the one experience that we feel more connected to. But yeah, there's the higher self, there's the God self, there's the all of those selves and all those multidimensional parts of us that if you choose to, you can find them, you'll find out what they're about, but only the ones that are significant to this lifetime.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating. She says, I tell people others may lead in who they want to connect to. So just give them a chance. We can always tell them we don't want a message from them. Yeah. I mean, look, and I've had people say that I don't want to talk to him. He's here, but okay, we can move on. But I still may not be able to bring through the person you want to bring through. They have to show up on
Right.
the, and that's, at least for me, that's how that works. Darlene, do you want to talk a little bit about your books? I know you mentioned them at the beginning. They're coming out next year,
Well,
or
the first one should be out in 2025 by Pegasus Publishing, and that one is the beginning of 5. It's Ellie Wazar was the being that's part of who I have been. That was a defector from the Maldekian mines. That's his history, and so him coming to Earth, and so it's called Earthbound: The Genesis of the Great Experiment, and it's his lifetime along with the Council of 28 that came in after my mother had passed. So most of them in those 28, of the 28 come in through those 5 books of in different timelines. There's Egypt and there's Lemuria and there's Atlantis and there's the Anunnaki and there's Enki and there's all of those specific timelines of where they originated or really what was happening in the ancient times of the evolution of Earth and the evolution of humanity. So it brings people through, and I see it as a workbook, a
Mhm.
lot of it, because it's a storyline. Whether you believe the storyline or not, the what's embedded in it is spiritual teachings. And so it's not about the characters as much as what's happening to the reader as they're reading it, and what are they learning that they might not have learned before. So there's tools and spiritual teachings that are throughout all 5 books to bring them to, which is the quest of all 5 books, is to become more than you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first one comes out in 2025, and they would be able to get it on your website, which we're going to talk about that too in just a minute. Is that soulunion.com? Is that your website? Soul Union.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they should be able to get that there as well. And if they want to book,
Yeah, and we'll be, I don't know where else it's I don't know where else it's going to be. I'm in the process of trying to figure out, doing a book tour. So if anybody wants me to come, it's actually 2 of us. Tanya's been my editor, and the interesting thing about that is our coincidence, not coincidence at all, of how we met and whatever. But she actually is found out who she is in book 4, which I had no idea.
oh, yeah, fascinating. I
It
don't,
is. It's always like watching a TV show. Like you don't know what's going to happen, and it's like, wow, like that's pretty cool,
are you in the US? I don't even know where you're at. Are you in the United States?
Upstate New York.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're not far. Well, from
No,
me, that's, I mean, far enough, but you're sort of
5 hours,
yeah,
Scott.
5 hours. What it is,
Yeah.
about 5 hours. So yeah, so people can look you up. I want to just give people another chance if they have any questions for Darlene before we close out the show tonight, because all of this stuff is insanely fascinating. And I'm going to share a little bit of news with them about you and I on another show coming up soon. And I've not spilled the beans on this. But I do want to take a moment to thank you, Darlene, for sharing your profound wisdom and on healing trauma through past lives. But if you'd like to explore more of Darlene's incredible work, visit her website at soulunion.com. And Soul Union is a resource dedicated to helping people find themselves, make better choices, expand future possibilities, and navigate the challenges of these intense and transitional times. I'm also going to put that in the description of the show, so you'll be able to look it up if you're listening to this on whatever you're listening to, whether it's on Spotify or whatever. You'll be able to find that later on. And also check out her book in 2025. You said it's called Pegasus?
No, Pegasus Publishing is who's publishing. It's called Earthbound.
Earthbound, Pegasus Publishing. So 2025, check that out as well. I also want to take a second to announce the launch of my new podcast, which is coming in January of 2025. Now, this isn't going anywhere. This is still going to be here every Wednesday, second Wednesday of every month. But the new podcast is called the Enlightened Life Podcast, and it debuts this January. And it's going to dive into topics like spirituality, mediumship, holistic practices, and a lot more. And we have quite a few guests that have already recorded and will be recording before we even get to January. So we'll have quite a few going ahead. But Darlene will be one of our first guests. And so I'm excited to have her back. It is going to be an audio-only format, although we will still place it here. It will be recorded and not live, but it'll be audio only, and you'll still get it all the places that you get all of your podcasts. So that's coming in January of 2025. I want you to also check out our upcoming classes and events on mediumscottallen.com. If you're looking for a private reading, I'd love to connect with you, and you can book your session directly on my website. I've also got some in-person mediumship circles coming up that are starting in January. If you are in the area north of Boston, I'd love to have you join us. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spirit Talk Lives, for more inspiring content. And stay informed by signing up for our newsletter, Soul Awakenings, which you can join right from the website. Darlene, thank you for joining us. I really have enjoyed this talk, and thank you for sharing your light with all of us today. And to all our listeners, I'd like to wish you all a joyous and peaceful holiday season filled with love and connection. Thank you for being part of the Spirit Talk Live community. We can't wait to see you in the new year. Until next time, keep shining, stay curious, and let your spirit guide you. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a beautiful holiday. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for Spirit Talk Live with Scott Allen. Please remember to subscribe to Spirit Talk Live on YouTube and share on all your social media channels.